everyone. I'm Staci-lee Sherwood from Reality Checks with Staci-lee, coming to you on All About Animals Radio. Now, if you think animal issues are just about animals, well, no, they involve politics and economics, so they really do affect all of us. I hope you learn a little something today, maybe be motivated to act, and enjoy the show. So with that, today's topic are wild but non-native monkeys whose very existence is up for grabs. Once again, we have a group of people whose only way of dealing with wildlife is to kill them. Sadly, this has become a very common but unfortunate theme these days, even though there are alternatives available. In March of 2023, the Government of Sint Maarten received a letter with 75 signatories offering their support in an effort to halt reported plans to kill these free-living green monkeys on the island as a means of population control. Now, Born Free USA, which is a pretty well-known animal protection organization, is leading the effort to save the monkeys. Now, this letter was signed by the world's leading primate and animal protection experts. So these aren't just, civilians. These are people who actually would know what to do and can offer sustainable, humane alternatives. But as of today, these groups are still awaiting a response, and the fate of the monkeys hangs in the balance. So that is why we are here today. So I am talking to a hero for our own wild, but non-native, but non-destructive monkeys here in Florida. Dr. Missy Williams, she runs the Dania Beach Vervet Project, a fantastic project. And of course, this subject is near and dear to her heart, so that's why we have her on the show. So Dr. Missy, welcome, and thank you for being here and for shedding some light on a topic that is probably kind of going under the radar and definitely needs to be exposed, as many issues don't come to light on the media, shall we say. So let's start with just the basics of how many monkeys approximately live on the island and how did they get there?
Based on the Nature Foundation's report, they claim that perhaps one idea is that the monkeys arrived on the island as pets. So in the 1950s, people said that islanders kept them as pets. According to the Nature Foundation's report, the first wild vervet monkey sighting was in the 1970s. I don't think they really have an accurate count of the monkey population on the island after reviewing the information presented in the report by the Nature Foundation. So they're claiming 450 monkeys are to be culled. However, when you look at the data they presented, they did not do any all-day follows, sun up to sundown. They estimated social groups could have anywhere from 10 to 50 monkeys. That's a wide range. That's an estimate for sure, and there's error in there. And they only surveyed, so out of the 121 surveyed sites, only 20 of those sites did they actually see monkeys. And yeah, so that didn't make any sense to me either. And then looking at the report, they said that the average number of monkeys documented in the morning were 4 individuals, and at night were 5 individuals, if I'm interpreting their data table correctly. So to assume there's 450 monkeys based on that data, it doesn't seem to work.
Right. Well, if you don't have accurate data, it's hard to correctly assess the situation and come up with a plan that works, which we've come to find out. I know with the wild horses, for instance, the government, the Bureau of Land Management will say, oh, there's 70, 80,000 wild horses. I can tell you that hasn't been true for 20 or 30 years. I mean, if there's 20,000, but it's kind of a common theme, and this isn't just a thing in the US, where government agencies will exaggerate, sometimes quite creatively exaggerate the number of animals to say, oh my gosh, there's so many, we're overrun, we can hunt or kill however many, and it will still be sustainable population. So that could also be part of it. So let me ask you, for those people who are not familiar with the terminology, native, non-native, can you explain what is the difference between a native and a non-native species?
Right. So a non-native species, plant or animal, is not endemic to the area that it's being observed at. Invasive means that non-native population has grown It has spread out of the introduced area, and the population is growing exponentially, which poses a threat to the local ecosystem. So there have been no impact studies done on the St. Maarten monkeys to see if that's really what's going on.
Right.
So until there's an official study completed, those monkeys should still just be labeled simply as a non-native species. There's nothing to support. They don't have the original number of monkeys that originated on the island. There's no way to estimate if that population is even really growing. They argue in the report that the population doubles every year. That has not been reported in any population worldwide at all. So for them to get an appropriate population estimate, they need to know the number of individuals present. They need to accurately determine age and sex class of that population. They need to determine the mortality rate of age and sex classes, and they also need to calculate the interbirth interval. Without that information, you cannot make an accurate population estimate of growth at all. They did not do that, and they do not have that data that it's been presented in this report.
Right. And also, it's my understanding that you can be a native species, but still be classified as invasive.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I think that terminology is used under the context of the narrative of the group that is trying to rally for whatever motivation that they have. And so it gets used and exploited a lot, those terms. Absolutely.
Right, because people hear the term non-native. Of course, I would point out that Europeans are non-native to the U.S. Just as an example. We're kind of out of control here. You could argue, but people hear that, right, and they hear non-native. Oh, well, we got to get rid of it. But here in Florida, probably half the plant species and certainly most of the reptiles are actually non-native. Some are harmless and some are not. And then, of course, we have plenty of invasive species that are native. But yeah, you're right. People hear that, and that's like a trigger. Like if you want to rally people to be on your side, they'll say, "Oh, they're non-native," and then you kind of throw out a number, as you pointed out, that isn't even factually based on any kind of a research. Is there any reason why they've come up with a plan to kill the monkeys without actually determining a true number for the population, or why they haven't done any data to see if they're even creating havoc in the wild? Because they've been there for what, 50, 60 years now, at least, right?
Yeah, if they're arguing that they originated in the 50s from the pet trade, that's, it's almost as long as our vervet monkey population here in Dania. It's a long time. I don't know why they have not completed an official impact study survey. I don't know. It's very difficult to communicate with the individuals on the island, either the Nature Foundation or the government. They haven't responded to the initial letter that was sent for free. So this really has become a one-sided case. We're doing our own fact checks. We're doing our own explorations and making assumptions based on what we find. They have yet to respond to anything or present data to support what they're arguing for.
Right. And it was the Nature Foundation that had the report that said that the Nature Foundation had claimed that the population could double in just 1 year, but that's impossible.
Yeah, like I just mentioned, that means every monkey would have to contribute to the population, and that does not happen. So if you look at population growth and other populations of vervet monkeys around the world, that never happens, right? So females only give birth once a year. Sometimes they skip birth seasons, and they only give birth to one offspring. And the mortality rate for offspring is 50%. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's impossible for a population to double.
Right. So that's probably,
and I don't.
So that's probably along the lines of trying to get people all whipped up that, oh my gosh, the population is going to double and then double and then double, and that kind of buys into the government plan that they're already out of control, right?
Right. And I think the government, just like here in the state of Florida, they rely on certain agencies to present information to make decisions with and then dole out tax dollars.
Right.
So I think the government is relying on the accuracy of the Nature Foundation and expects them to be the experts.
Mhm.
So they assume the reports that they receive are accurate, not realizing that there's lots of false information presented in that nature report.
So is the Nature Foundation kind of responsible for monitoring the population, or
I
do they
really
just kind of appoint
don't,
themselves?
I don't know what the role is on the island. Like I've said, they won't communicate with me at all. They won't communicate with any outside resources or other outside organizations. So we really don't know if they are the only ones making decisions for the island's wildlife. It would be
So
nice for some transparency.
yeah, it definitely would. Well, I know in Florida we don't always have a lot of transparency either, and that can be very frustrating and rarely helps the wildlife. That is true, or the people, the genuine people trying to help. Um, so instead of actually just killing all the monkeys, what would be a viable alternative to that?
Well, I assume that the population is definitely much smaller than what they're projecting. So when I looked at their report, they said that the field research based on their observation shows an underestimation of monkeys on the island. However, um, they're using reports from residents to calculate this number. And after doing field research for 10 years and talking to people who see our monkeys regularly on a daily basis, they're like, oh my God, there were 50 monkeys here this morning. No, there weren't. There's 17 in that group, right? So you can't rely on the community's observations when you're calculating scientific data. It's anecdotal data, right? It's a good place to start,
Right.
but certainly it shouldn't be used as accurate information. If you interview anybody about the number, anything they see, it's either less or more. It's exaggerated number than what it is factually. And I think that's what happened here. So, they stated that, like I said, the field research shows an underestimation of monkeys on the island, but they did not actually consider the fact that maybe it's actually smaller than what they expected, right? They just went for the bigger number.
Right.
But I'm going to assume that it's much smaller based on the data they've presented. And this is certainly the time now to mitigate population growth, which is what they're concerned about. And this can be done through humane sterilization, which leads to attrition of the population.
Right.
And in the meantime, there are ways to prevent these animals from coming into people's gardens or into the farms. Those were the people who were complaining, agricultural people. Those were the only people that it seems that they surveyed, right? So they said that they surveyed 143 people.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the population of the island is 77,000 people.
Okay,
That's
so
not
out
a
of
true, accurate survey.
77,000 people, they surveyed how many? 140 something?
143 respondents.
Okay, so that's like less than
It,
0.00001%. Okay, right.
Yeah, it's 0.19% of the island's population. So if you're approaching the government to take communities' tax dollars, you would expect that everyone would be able to make a fair and educated, informed opinion about where their money is going.
Right.
However, based on the data that shows that it was spread through social media, which is a great way to do it, but there's other means that you should consider when you're doing an island survey. And it was mainly through agricultural groups. And agricultural groups on the island, they represent 1% of the GDP. 1%.
Yeah.
That's not a lot. It's a small minority. So I think if they really wanted to fairly assess the island's opinion, yes, you should do it through social media. However, you should go through the newspaper. You should go out to community groups and give a talk. Leave the surveys behind there. Go interview people at I'm trying to think, like grocery stores, etc. So I did a survey for my monkeys, right? And I had a link and it was anonymous. I put it out everywhere. I didn't want just the people who see the monkeys and like the monkeys to respond. I wanted a general opinion.
Right.
So we did news stories. We put it out in news links through interviews we did on live TV. It was disseminated through all different avenues because I wanted to see what people really thought. I went and gave talks in the community of in Dania Beach and, in Fort Lauderdale, even up all the way up to Jupiter, where they never see the monkeys, right? But it's just an appropriate way to gauge public opinion. You have to include as many people as possible to get an accurate perception of what people think, and
Right.
also to determine where do these people want their tax dollars to go.
Right.
So they got $500,000 reportedly from the St. Maarten government. That's a lot of money.
That is.
And so my argument has been, well, why don't you let these 75 expert organizations come in and sterilize the monkeys for free, educate the community of how to keep these monkeys out, and take that $500,000 and do something different with it.
Right.
For infrastructure, for feeding children. They report that we're arguing that children are starving and we're arguing to feed the monkeys. That's not the case at all. But if these are really legitimate social issues on the island, let us come in, fix your problem for you. You
Right.
take that $500,000 and work on other issues that need to be addressed on the island. So that's just my logical thinking about it. However, I know it's a different mindset and it's difficult to navigate that.
Well, see now, Missy, that is your first mistake. You're trying to think logically. You can't do that when you deal with government agencies. I speak from personal experience.
I know.
If there's a logical way and a crazy, insane, what the heck way, they will go for that. And if you can do something that's humane or sustainable or, gosh, God forbid, free, versus something that costs a lot of money, taxpayer money, again, that is what they go to. So I'm glad you mentioned social media. So I wanted to ask you, what role does social media play in driving people's support for the government plan or their understanding of how the monkeys got there, or their role in the wilderness, or if they cause any kind of damage? Because social media can do good things, but it can do kind of bad things too.
Right. It can be used for good or bad, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
There have not been any recent posts from the Nature Foundation about the monkeys on their social media page.
Okay.
I think based on some islanders that I talk with, they say that they just want this to be kind of swept under the carpet and people forget about it.
Yeah.
So I think they just don't bring it up. The folks who do continue to voice concerns are the people who are the farmers on the island. So I think maybe that they're actually trying to expand their agricultural sector to use it as an income for the island. But they haven't confirmed that. So we don't know what's going on with that. We don't know really how many farmers are impacted, how many farms are there. What are the goals for the farmers? Is it for personal use? Is it for business growth? We don't know how many monkeys come into the garden, how often they come into the garden. So this information would be very useful if it was put out on social media, because it would help, I think, inform a lot of people what's going on. But no one will share that information. So right now you just see lots of angry farmers posting, like that picture of the dead monkey that he was very proud of. But that's not helpful either. Right? So was it just one monkey that you said tried to get into your house, or was it a small group? How often was this monkey approaching? There's many, many ways to mitigate that animal from coming close to your house. So killing that animal and posting it in a boastful manner really shows the lack of morality of that individual.
Well, that's kind of like what trophy hunters do. Look at me, I killed this animal. So the farmer claim that he just killed this one monkey because the monkey was a nuisance, I guess that's
right. He said he was trying to get into his house. But they really don't understand primate behavior. One woman posted a video of macaques in Asia, and she said they were attacking people. So I looked at it, and they were not attacking. When monkeys attack, you will be left with bite marks. You will be bleeding. It's not pretty. These monkeys were stealing food from a group of folks on the beach.
Okay.
I said, they're not attacking people. That is a learned association that people mean food.
Right.
So that's not an attack. That's just them knowing that's an easy food source. So we're going to go steal it and run off. So, like I said, the idea of how people interpret what they see isn't always accurate either. So maybe that monkey really wasn't trying to get into his house. We don't know. They never record this stuff. We never see it.
Right.
So like I said, this has just become a one-sided argument on our side because we're not getting anything from the island. And it's very frustrating.
I did have a question. I wanted to circle back. You said that the monkeys had been there since the 1970s or 1950s, or for all we know, even before that. So that's a long time. So why now? Why is everyone in an uproar now in 2023 when the monkeys have been there all along? I mean, if they were trying to, break into people's homes and wreaking havoc on the farms, I would think that they would pretty much do that right at the get-go. I don't think that it would take 50, 60, 70 years and multiple generations to suddenly go, hey, there's a farm over there. I'm going to go, cause problems. Right? Seems illogical, right?
Right, you're correct. Yeah, you would expect to see historically people complaining of like, what are we going to do? Maybe they have, and it just never left the island, But I was told by one of the rangers at the Nature Foundation after the hurricane came through, people resorted to planting food in their garden for themselves. So maybe it stems from this post-hurricane idea of, well, maybe I should just start growing my own food and expand this. Like I said, I don't know if it's for business or personal use. So maybe more people are starting to plant fruits and vegetables than before, right? And this has led to the outcry. However, like you said, what was going on before? They would associate people's houses with food, I'm assuming. I don't know. Like I said, there's so many questions that we don't have the answers to. So we just make lots of assumptions.
Right. Right. Now, which hurricane would that have been? Would that have been Irma in 2017 or Maria or?
I believe so. I'd have to go back and look. But I know the island did get wiped out. I saw it was horrific. And they're still recovering from that, right? So once again, take that $500,000 and put it back into infrastructure, fix and repair what was damaged. They do rely on tourism, right? So use that to boost your tourism, build new hotels, build new excursion activities for your tourists. And people come to the island to see the monkeys. That's a whole nother ecotourism opportunity they're missing.
I was just gonna, you read my mind. I was just gonna mention that surely people will, I mean, I know here in Florida, when I first got here, people are like, oh my gosh, there's wild monkeys. Originally there were the squirrel monkeys at the Bonnet House, which basically are gone at this point. And the Vervet monkeys in Dania Beach. And so I heard about that years ago and everybody knew about it. And basically everybody was like, oh, you've got to see these monkeys. It's amazing. They were happy. They were thrilled. They wanted to go down. They wanted to take pictures. Obviously, some were, trying to feed them. But it was like a positive thing. And it was even, well, it was a little more localized. I don't know that it necessarily benefited tourism per se. But certainly the monkeys up at Silver Spring, right?
Yes.
Well, so there is tourism. A lot of people go into the park hoping to see the monkeys, right? And they go down there. And then, of course, it's pretty far away if you're in South Florida or some other state. So you want to stay overnight. So that would be car rental. That would be airplane, obviously food, right? We would need food. So that does actually generate that. And I know from experience and also from being here for so long, so many people have gone up there multiple times because contrary to some of the misleading conceptions, wildlife doesn't just hang out on the road going, hey, I'm here, take my picture. You really gotta look for them, and it's more miss than hit, and it's really kind of lucky. So sometimes people are really determined and they make several trips up there. And every time they do, like, oh my gosh, we were on this little boat and we got to see the monkey and the baby monkey, and it's a happy thing. So there has to be some kind of tourism involved, and they could certainly do like an ecotourism kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was there hiking, on the French side of the island, we were going to the top of Peak Paradise. It's a huge mountainous area. And so we hiked up to the top of the hill, didn't see one monkey. However, we did see several tourists who were like, hey, we're looking for the monkeys too. So, and then we got to the top, we saw people at the top saying, well, somebody said there was a monkey here, right? So I said, so that's funny. We're all looking for monkeys. They're hard to find. Contrary to what the media says that they're overtaking the island. And I said, well, did you know the island's killing them? well, why would they do that? And I explained the situation that was going on. And to them, as tourists, they were like, well, that's ridiculous. Why don't you just sterilize and let us enjoy seeing your monkeys on the island, right? So, yeah, like you said, they're missing a huge opportunity for ecotourism. And one of the women that I've been communicating with on the island suggested, which I think is brilliant on her part, that maybe move them to a reserve of some sort. I think that's a happy compromise.
Right.
And say, hey, you want to see monkeys? Come to this side of the island. You can walk through the forest, and hopefully you'll be guaranteed to see them if they're all condensed into one location. And then you'd be able to have local student volunteers to do guides or educate people coming into that area. So I think, like you said, it would generate revenue for tourism. It would be brilliant, right? And then I've also talked about a field school there. So students go to, there hasn't been any really research done on those animals. So I think it's an awesome opportunity to let students come into the island and do proposed research on those monkeys. Field schools make money. There's two that I know of in Costa Rica who an acquaintance runs them. She has lots of students. She's able to get professors from all over the world, and they come in, and you can do 2-week courses, you can do 4-week courses. Either way, you have to pay, obviously, like you mentioned, airplanes. And then there is a fee you have to pay for room and board and for food preparation. And on those research sites, they have people hired to cook for the students. So it does also increase and contribute to job growth. So there's plenty of viable options that I think would benefit the island. It's just they have not been brought up, or if they have, they haven't been discussed outwardly.
Right. Is there like a timeline for a decision to occur? Like has the government said, we're going to make a decision by the end of the year, or is it just like sometime in the future, or we're looking to do this as soon as possible?
It seems they've already started. So the ranger that I spoke with said they've recruited 2 vets on the island to euthanize, and he sets traps Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Oh.
However, Leslie Hickerson, the manager of the Nature Foundation, reportedly told a reporter on the island, or wouldn't answer if a vet is there for humane euthanasia. She's like, well, why would you want to know? Well, that's what you put in your proposal, that the vets would be euthanizing. So she wouldn't want to answer. And from what I'm understanding, these animals, farmers are killing them. I don't know if those trapped animals are actually making it to the vets, but people have concern, well, how can we just keep dumping all these monkeys into the local dump? That means that it's always happening, and the numbers are increasing if people are concerned about the number of dead monkeys in the dump. They're concerned about health concerns. So like I said, it's just been one-sided. We have questions and they don't want to answer us, and I don't understand why.
No, and you said, okay, so you said multiple farmers have already killed monkeys?
Based on some of the social media posts that I've seen. So it seems to be under the radar, and socially acceptable to kill the monkeys when it comes onto your property. And thusly, you see the post that was the other day.
So are they just waiting until a monkey comes onto their property and then they go, oh, this is a nuisance, or would they be luring them with traps or food?
I don't know. Someone posted a picture of the Nature Foundation's traps.
Yeah.
And they were rickety. And I made the comment I could build one of those for $10. And there was a banana sitting on top of it. So it's almost baiting that animal to go into the trap. And I don't know if this trap was in a neighborhood or if it was on a farm. However, they're not experts on monkey behavior. They will quickly associate that with a negative connotation. They will start avoiding those traps.
Right.
So you fool me once, you're not going to fool me twice. And if these monkeys are coming in social groups, the ones that were not trapped observed the panic and the fear in the monkey inside, and we'll be like, oh, next time we see one of those, we will not be going inside.
Exactly. Right.
So they'll never be able to contain the problem through euthanasia ever. Especially since they're so close to the other islands who they legitimately have a large population. I think there's 50,000 or something like that on Barbados.
Wow.
So there will always be feeder islands of Caribbean monkeys into
Right.
St. Martin.
Right.
So this killing consistently over and over is not going to be very helpful. It's always going to be a problem. And you're always going to have to pay to take care of that problem. So it's going to have to be years and years of consistent euthanasia, paying a vet to do this. It's a drain on the resources that is completely unnecessary.
Right. It's like the never-ending cycle. It's almost kind of like with the feral cats and almost identical, where people are like, oh, well, we'll just kill all the feral cats, but that's an improbable. It just never happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's just
unrealistic. You
yeah,
can never do it.
it's unrealistic to think that you could trap all of them and kill all of them. It may sound logical, well, we'll just trap them all and kill them all, be done with it. But you can never ever trap all of them, and there's always some idiot. I'll just say it, some idiot who didn't sterilize their cat, and they dump kittens, and it starts the cycle all over again.
Right.
You said 50,000
Is the
on
estimate.
Barbados?
Yeah, Barbados or St. Kitts and Nevis, both
Wow.
islands,
Right.
when they say they're overrun and the monkeys are everywhere, they really mean it. So, and it's an issue with them, with the agricultural folks, because they rely on agriculture as a mean of their incomes there.
Right.
So, but what's really interesting is those islands still promote the monkeys as a means of tourism. So, yes, the farmers there in the islands kill them, or they're trapped and sent to the US for lab use. However, they're still used for tourism. They're not advertising, look, we're killing our monkeys. They're saying, hey, come visit, come see our monkeys, right? So, and that's quite opposite of St. Martin. They're saying, we're going to kill our monkeys. So if you come to see our monkeys, they probably won't be here because we're trying to kill them, or they've learned really quickly that people are horrible and mean and have a negative association with people. So they're going to duck away anyway, you know? Like I was on the island for 4 days. I drove all over the island and there were only 2 spots that I found the monkeys.
Mm.
Um, and the one time I observed just 2 monkeys, it was an adult male and what looked like from a distance a female.
Mm-hmm.
And in another spot, maybe we saw 4 or 5 at the most, but they were not keen on people. Let me tell you that.
Right.
So for them to claim that the island is overrun by monkeys is certainly untrue. I drove everywhere. I interviewed people. I said, where do I go see the monkeys? And most people said, you might see them every once in a while.
Hmm.
And they're like, I said, well, what do you think about them killing them? They're like, I don't think they need to do that. She goes, yeah, that might be annoying, which is fine. You can have an opinion like that. I don't care. But no one certainly said, oh, God, we have to kill them. That was not the opinion that I walked away with the surveys that I took myself on the island.
Right. Right. So you spent 4 days, just to stress this point, you spent 4 days actively spending time trying to find them, and you found maybe 4. That's a very different number from the 450.
At the most, maybe 10. It was
10, maybe, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I was lucky, so I got, I landed, I was looking, scanning. I'm like, oh, based on their news stories, I should encounter a monkey up in the trees over
All the
here, just like
time.
if you
Right.
went, did not happen. And so I thought that was really weird. And people are like, oh, yeah, no. And so, of course, the people who support this call
Right.
are criticizing my 4 days. However, I do tell them, well, originally the Nature Foundation ranger was going to show me around the island. So I would have been able to see what they were talking about.
Right.
They found out that I was sharing the petition of, that St. Martin is killing monkeys, please sign here. However, in the initial conversation that I established with the ranger, he was like, well, why do you care about the monkeys so much? So he knew that I wasn't a fan of killing the monkeys. So anyway, we were going back and forth. He was going to show me around. Then apparently someone in the Nature Foundation saw that I was not in favor of this. He emailed and said, I can no longer help you. I'm terribly sorry. Okay, well, now I'm left to my own devices for 4 days to do my own research and drive around the island and see what people think of the monkeys. Did you know they were killing the monkeys, etc. And a lot of people were in the dark about it, So I wish they would have kept up on that agreement to show me around because I could have walked away with more information to present to folks who are invested and curious about what's going on.
Right. And of course, the irony, because you run the Dania Beach Vervet Project and have encountered almost the exact same thing where people just throw out numbers. Oh, there's like hundreds of monkeys. No, there's not. Oh, they're all over the place. No, there's not. No, they're not. Oh, they're giving us, I don't know, venereal disease and all kinds of things.
No. Oh God, yeah,
God,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
God, no.
yeah. And the
God,
ranger
no,
even said that. He's like, well, what about they're going to spread diseases?
Well, that's another go-to thing. They spread diseases, right?
Yeah. So I sent him a clip that was done, a peer-reviewed paper that says Caribbean vervet monkeys are typically disease-free. That's why they get shipped to the labs in the U.S.
Right.
So that's not going to work. And I do remember him telling me that they don't need experts on vervets to help with the solution.
Okay.
Okay. That's clear based on your report that you need an expert because the information you're presenting is wrong.
Right.
Or it's poorly documented. So I don't know. It's just very interesting. One lady said, just mind your business, stay away from the island and go back to the USA. So it's just, different cultural perceptions maybe of how we view animals versus some folks, or it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just a mystery.
It is. Well, oftentimes if someone says, well, we don't need an expert, that's because they want to control the narrative because they already have a predetermined idea what they want to do, and they don't want anyone countering it and saying, oh, no, that's not what you do. That's not logical. Right. It's not sustainable. It's not even economical. It's not politically correct. It's not humane. It doesn't make any sense. And that's another reason why they might have only asked 140 farmers as opposed to, even 10 or 20% of the 70-something thousand people that live there, because they would probably get a very different answer. And then they have to come back and come up with another idea, which of course would not cost them anything and would kind of solve the problem, but they might have a predetermined idea of what they want to do.
I think you're correct on that.
Yeah.
It's just the agricultural people it's a very small group of people that are making all the noise and pressuring, I think, the Nature Foundation to do what they want. And disregarding the idea that other people on the islands, people on the island might have had solutions as well, but they were never given the opportunity to express or offer services. So I don't know.
Does the Nature Foundation have any other conservation projects that they have been successful at, or are they more just like a consulting organization, or what's their kind of role?
Based on what I see on social media, they're active in the community doing like plastics. I think something else was maybe some ocean issues. So they're doing other things to engage the community. However, for some odd reason, this is just being kept very hush-hush. The monkey issue is under wraps, or it's not under wraps, but they're not talking about it. And when you approach them about it, they don't want to talk about it. But I guess if you called and said, hey, we're interested in talking about your plastic-free ocean trash cleanup, whatever, they would have a ton to say about that, right?
Right.
So, it's certain things they're pushing through to the public and certain things that they aren't.
And I wanted to ask you one more question. Okay, so we know the farmers are taking matters into their own hand. Did you say that the vets, they hired vets? Did you say that they were already in the process of killing the monkeys?
Euthanizing, yes, yeah. So he sets traps Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and if a monkey's in the trap, based on the conversation that I had with this ranger, is yes, those monkeys do go to the vet to be euthanized. However, like I said, the manager of Nature Foundation will not confirm or refuse to answer if a vet was present during euthanasia. So what does that mean? I don't know. It's weird.
Then who's doing the euthanasia then?
I don't know. I was so excited that the ranger was going to show me all these things, right? Yeah. So I could have factual information. And they said, nope, we're not going to help you. Please don't come. I'm going to come. I booked my ticket, my hotel. I'm coming. And here I am, right? So, yeah, I really don't know what's going on. Are those monkeys being really humanely euthanized? No one knows.
No one knows. Yeah.
They're concerned about the monkeys building up in the dump.
Yeah, well, aside from being inhumane and tragic and really unnecessary, that can also be that can become a human health issue, but also a health issue for other wildlife as well. That's just that's not good. But I was always under the impression that a veterinarian did the euthanasia.
That's what I would assume. That's
Yeah,
what.
that's not good. That's
No, so if you're just training people to participate in euthanasia, there's
right.
room for error. They're not an expert. They're not medically trained, and that can cause an animal welfare issue if it's not done properly. The animal will suffer. Yeah, exactly. So
I just hate hearing about stuff like this.
yeah, it's horrible, and they argue once again that we're prioritizing monkeys over people. It's not that. We're offering solutions for farmers to maintain their farms, to get the monkeys away from their farms. We have ideas for that. And, the Vervet Monkey Foundation in South Africa, the Monkey Helpline in South Africa, they deal with this all the time. St. Martin is not an isolated event. Human wildlife conflict is global. And so, we have two organizations who've been in the business for 30 or 40 years and are able to help reduce monkey visits and crop raiding. You should listen to what they have to say, right? Because, like you said, killing isn't going to work every time a monkey shows up. They just know that's where we go to get food. So, if you can break that disassociation of this guy's house has yummy food items, then they won't show up anymore. You can put up strategically placed feeding stations away from the areas that they frequent, and they'll learn to go to the feeding stations instead.
Right. After all, they're primates and they're extremely intelligent, as we know, right? So it's not like trying to retrain a bird or anything like that. Oftentimes people cause problems, and then they kind of whine and cry. Oh, this not like with raccoons, right? People leave out their trash. And with bears, they either leave out the trash or it's not secured or whatever. And then, of course, the poor animal, because we've destroyed their habitat and we've hunted and killed a lot of their food source, so that's a lot of it too. So they're hungry. They've got babies to feed. We would do the same thing if it was us. But we like to blame other species for that. And so the bears and raccoons come in looking for food, and then that person is like, oh my gosh, now I have a problem. Someone needs to kill it and fix it. But they created that problem. They created that problem. I see that all the time. So is there anything for people listening? Is there anything people wanted to help stop this or help the monkeys? Is there anything that we can do or anyone to contact?
Yeah, I think directly contacting the Nature Foundation of St. Martin, the Government of St. Martin, to let them know that, please explore other options. Stop killing the monkeys. There's free help available. Take advantage of that. And also go to the Born Free website to find a petition and sign it. Share that petition with all of your friends on social media, whatever outlet you need to let people know that, hey, there's an offer on the table to help, and there are solutions to make all parties happy.
Right. I will include all those links when we're done with the show, and that will be that will take you right to the websites with more information. And so hopefully people listening, can do something. So I guess we will leave it there. So I'm so glad to talk to you about this. I can only hope this enlightens people, not just for the monkeys on St. Martin, but in general, as Missy had said, this is a global problem. It's not just monkeys, it's horses, it's dogs, it's birds, it's bats, it's pretty much everything at this point. And also, I would encourage people to not just believe what you hear, whether it comes from the government, social media, or anywhere. If someone says they're overrun, they're out of control, there's too many, it takes 5 minutes to Google something and find out, oh, it's not 80,000 horses, it's 20,000. It's not 450 monkeys, it's maybe 50, right? And then when you have facts, when you have the truth, and when you have facts, you can make an intelligent, God forbid, logical decision, right? Otherwise, you're just making things worse.
Right. I call those people sheeple, just following along.
Yes. And I've seen many Facebook memes where, and I do like sheep; they are cute.
Yes.
But I have seen many memes where there's a bunch of sheep, and it's kind of like people don't want to think that they are like that or that they are easily manipulated. But the truth is, history has taught us that we can be and that we are, and we still are, And here's yet another example, right? When you were there and you talked to people and they're like, why are they doing this? They're not causing any problem, and we hardly see them, right? And yet, if you only listen to the government or the farmers, which is, they have their own agenda probably, you would think that if you got to St. Martin, my gosh, there'd be monkeys all over the place, and they'd be stealing your food and biting you and causing all kinds of problems. And none of that is even really remotely true. If it was, that we would see those reports, we would see the evidence of that. So
yeah, people in St. Martin, the tourists would post that on social media in a hot minute. Like, oh my gosh, I was at the beach and this monkey came up and stole my food.
Exactly. And then bit me.
Yes, I never see that. Yeah. So I don't, like we're here, we are Save the SXM Monkeys Facebook page, just to get their attention because they kept refusing to address. So, this really was the only way that I could get their attention, right? Maybe through a little bit of crazy posting, but you have to draw light to this, this situation. So we're here to help, we want to help. And, we certainly don't want to see the people's means of income suffer at all. That's not what we're trying to do either, right? So we want their farmers, we want your farms to grow and you're able to sell your fruits. That's fabulous. That's great, However, we don't think the monkeys should be killed for associating your plot of land with food when there's other ways sustainable to keep them away.
And not only that, but if you took all these organizations up on their suggestions, and you had the monkeys sterilized, then basically they would go extinct organically, so to speak, right? And then if you put them on a reserve with plenty of natural food, or even if volunteers, dropped off fruit or nuts or whatever, they would be fine. They'd be contained. It wouldn't be a problem. And then was it $500,000? Well, then perhaps you could dole some of that out to the farmers, right, to help them either buy more land or sustainably grow crops or advertise, export. I mean, there's a variety of things, right? So it would be like a win-win situation to do that, and to just kill the monkeys. That's really, aside from being cruel, that's not really the
doesn't
answer.
Work. No. Like, socioeconomically, everyone on the island should flourish. There's no reason for them not to have that support from the government and perhaps seek a different avenue for an alternative to tourism. That's fabulous. So, we're not poo-pooing on that at all. We're just saying, hey, it's going to be a constant battle for you and your farms if you just keep killing, because they're not mitigating the behavior of that animal.
Well, with those other feeder islands, and then of course the international pet trade, you're never gonna. That's a global problem. So you'd have to address that as a global issue too. But also you could get some bad PR, like the Faroe Islands. It might be a beautiful island, but they're known for unbelievable, brutal, savage killing of the pilot whales, and that's all over social media, right? So people hear that, and Denmark kind of owns the Faroe Islands. So when you hear that, you're like, oh wait, isn't that the place where they kill all those whales? Maybe we'll go on a vacation someplace else, right?
Right.
And
yes.
maybe they read something like, oh, that this island here in the Caribbean, they did a wonderful thing, and they've got some monkeys. Maybe we'll go there. So, to the government of St. Martin, that might be some good PR. You don't want to be like the Faroe Islands, right? Or Taji, right? Taji.
Right. Oh gosh, that's awful. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is a great PR opportunity for them.
It is for them. It is for them. It is.
Absolutely. To say, hey, we're going to work with these professional organizations. We're going to help our farmers succeed. We're going to make sure the monkey population is sterilized and either use it for ecotourism or like I said, a field school. Like you said, it's a win-win. There's solutions out there to help everyone.
I love the field school idea. Too bad I'm not a student anymore. I think I'm too old.
I would totally go down there and teach a class. I would have no problems doing that. So I think, and it would be more cost effective, if you're here in the States to fly down there, I think. Then when you go overseas, you have to get these permits, and it's expensive to go abroad, So some of my colleagues go to Africa, and the permitting process and the cost is exorbitant, right?
Right.
Especially if you're a student. But if you can offer something that's relatively close to the US and not too expensive. You get that authentic field research, you're contributing to science, you're contributing to the economic growth of the island. Why not? I think it'd be great. I'd sign up in a minute.
Right,
Yeah.
and conservation. And also it could be like a template for other governments, other islands, other countries to follow suit. So it would be, like you said, like a win-win situation. One can only hope that once again sanity comes.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, we're trying to organize a Zoom meeting. So I emailed, those organizations that were willing to help, and we got a response from Ian Redman, famous conservationist, who's willing to chip in and help with his expertise. Vervet Monkey Foundation said he'll get back to me on Tuesday. He's at a conference. The Monkey Helpline said we'll chip in, offer any advice or assistance necessary. Then obviously Born Free who spearheaded the petition and the letter, is going to participate. We have Tim Ajax from the Oklahoma Primate Sanctuary, who actually managed, if you believe it or not, a large population of snow macaques south of San Antonio.
Oh, wow.
So it was amazing. So he knows how to take a very large population and sterilize them to keep them under control. So he's willing to supervise and sit in on that. And we're waiting to hear back from a couple more organizations. However, I'm hopeful. We have great people that want to help the people of the island. They want to help the monkeys and do it with some real science behind it.
So these people actually not only know what to do, but have done it, and they're being ignored. Yeah, that's gotta change. That's definitely gotta change. So Missy, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always nice talking with you.
Well, for shedding light on this, and I hope we can help. So we will end it here. I hope people have enjoyed the show and learned a little something, and I will be posting links so people can read up on it and hopefully contact the government and the Nature Foundation and try to do something about that. That would be great. And also, I would encourage people to tune in to other shows on All About Animals Radio. They cover a whole bunch of issues, wildlife, domestic animals, a lot of things that you won't hear on the media, but you could learn from. So with that,
Thank you. And then one last note, I do want to say it's the Eco Agricultural and Research Development group that is willing to come to the table to talk to us.
Okay.
So it's the agricultural people who say, yes, let's talk, and we're going to try to get in front of the government. So we're seeing baby steps to coming together, and it has started with the local farmers, which is good news.
Okay. Well, I got my fingers crossed. Me too.
I'm optimistic.
I got my fingers crossed. I didn't even know about vervet monkeys until I was able to come down and see the ones in Florida, and that was unbelievable. And we do share a lot of our DNA with primates. Just a reminder to people that, I'm against killing any kind of species, but, if you really want to talk about a species that we really should, have a greater understanding and patience with, it would be primates. And of course, we're not the only species on planet Earth. I know a lot of us act like we are and think and hope like we are, but we're really not. Planet Earth is for all the species here. So I hope everyone has learned that there's a difference between invasive and destructive and non-native that is not destructive. So with that, that is a wrap. Thank you, Missy.
Very much. I'll talk to you later.